Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, an attempt to bring all of the players, from special interest groups to institutions like RVH, together to work together to address homelessness in the area. To many, global warming, climate change, and the day-to-day weather are all the same thing, but they're not. We'll get an explanation. And Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall drops by to talk about downtown and a recent police initiative to address issues about crime and the public's perception of safety in the core. We get the conversation started after this. A lot of groups and organizations talking the talk when it comes to homelessness, but a new group calling itself Barrie Cares is looking to organize them all so they can actually walk the walk and get things done. Barrie 360's Ian MacLennan is with Barrie Cares board chair Rowley Ramey.
You know, it's a coalition of private, not-for-profit, and public individuals coming together as one unit, redefining how we deal with homelessness.
How did it come to be?
Well, it really started as a grassrootish kind of thing. Three of us in particular kind of looked out our window and we weren't really liking what we saw. And we thought there must be a more dignified and more effective approach in dealing with our homeless people in the community.
And how critical is this collaboration? Who are you collaborating with?
Well, we're open to all like-minded individuals that support the unhoused or precariously housed people. And really, I think the effect is there's different things that a private entity can do, a public entity can do, and a not-for-profit entity. And that by having honest and open conversations amongst each other, where one man's challenge might be another man's strength. And so if we work in a collaborative and complementive way, and in concert, we believe we can help more people than we currently do.
Now, in your news release, indicated some of those participants include Georgian College, Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre, Barrie Police, County of Simcoe, Canadian Mental Health Association, the Simcoe County branch. How often do you meet? And is it a brainstorming or is it solutions? When you come together, what do you talk about?
It's all of that. So it's about going upstream and seeing what some of the challenges are. For instance, the hospital, you said. So when we're looking at with Gail from the hospital, the president of the hospital, and said, Gail goes, how can I help? And I go, well, Barrie Cares would like to understand what your challenges is to avoid people arriving at your emergency department and what we might be able to do in the community to avoid that. And the alternative side, on the exit strategy, what can we do when you release them into the community that will help them not be back into there? And so by these kind of conversations, those are areas that are beyond their control. Maybe Barrie Cares is something we can build that solution. So we're trying to be that string that ties everything all together.
Now, you indicated that in the release, you're more than an organization. You said it's a call to action for our entire community. So how do you get community involvement outside of those that are the main collaborators, so to speak?
Well, anybody that's interested in becoming a part of the Barrie Cares initiative, if you will, just goes onto our website, express what level of interest, whether it's volunteer, funding, service provider, and then we'll try and bring you into that fold, and let's bring all of our energies and ideas together and see how we can raise each other's boat.
First Steps indicates the homelessness enumeration, which the county does. I believe it's every 3 years. And also the Heart Hub endorsement. That is the project the province announced, a homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hub. And the county has applied for one. Barrie wants one. So what's your role?
So our role in that, so the enumeration was part of a group of individuals that you don't know what you don't know. So we wanted to be part of the enumeration. We also wanted to understand what our city's enumeration looked like. So we were able to add some questions into that survey to better inform us on how we might be able to serve our community. The Heart Hub application was a fortunate piece of work for us because we were already envisioning a campus of care, and this would deal with one element of our community that's unhoused, those that are mentally addicted or mentally unwell, that could use some other support systems. So that would be part of the on-campus. So I think because Barrie Cares has been envisioning that, has a very public side to it, I think it fits well into that application where other communities may not want this kind of service but don't have it yet.
Are you a nonprofit? Is that
We
the
are
goal?
not for profit.
Yeah, and so you're another add-on organization, which you're another group that wants to call to action. I mean, there's the Busby, Youth Haven, Salvation Army. So where overall do you fit into this puzzle? Because there are lots of ideas and lots of groups out there. What's your piece of the puzzle in this?
I think our piece of the puzzle is to bring all those entities together. If you think of something like Live Aid, where we had all those musicians out there, each one had their own ideology or their own genre of music, their own style of delivery and stuff like that. But they came together under one roof, under one force, and did something completely amazing. And I envision that for Barrie Cares, something very similar, where we take all these different organizations, make sure we're not duplicating our services, make sure that we're complementing each other, allow for each one to hold and maintain their own ideation, but in not doing that duplication or replication of services, and we'll have a higher scale of efficiency, we'll be able to help more people, and I think we'll be more community-centered.
For more information on how to get involved, log on to barriecares.ca. Another uptick in the temperature this week after fall seemed to have settled in, not particularly out of the ordinary for the season, but it has dredged up arguments again about global warming and climate change, which, contrary to popular opinion, are not one and the same. And then there's the actual weather, which is another animal altogether, says Environment Canada climatologist David Phillips.
They are really, it's true, Dan. I mean, I think, but Canadians don't often distinguish one from the other. One is easy to deal with is climate change versus global warming. You don't hear global warming as much because what we recognize that climate change is more than just warming. It's about changing precipitation patterns, weather generally. It's more about extremes of weather, not just, you get a thunderstorm, it's a severe thunderstorm, a major one, major flooding, supersized hurricanes and things like this. So we certainly use the word climate change to mean the whole ball of wax with regards to how our kind of weather's change. And what is climate? Well, climate, it's going to sound rather boring. It is the statistics of weather. When you look out the window, you don't see climate. It's something that you could compute on a table, like, on a piece of paper or graph it. It's sort of like you take all that weather you see over the many years and you average it all together and do some statistical analysis. Well, what you're really doing is describing the climate of that area. So they are connected, but they have different dimensions and different areas. One thing that I have found in my studying of climate is that Canadians used to not believe that the climate was changing. And some still feel that, but it's a very small percentage. The vast majority of Canadians believe that our climate is changing faster and greater now than it has in a long time, and that human DNA is very much part of it. I mean, in the past, it was we've had temperatures on planet Earth that were warmer than even today, when people didn't even live on planet Earth. So we know nature is capable through sunspots, through volcanism, through geometry of the sun and the earth. We see those kind of changes. We've had ice covering Canada 2 kilometers thick over Barrie, 15,000 years ago. And so we know that the climate has been very different in the past. But what is different about now is there's a new agent of change called people. We know what has caused this. That's the thing that's so interesting. We need solutions, but it's not as if we have to discover what has caused this misery, hardship, and misfortune, this variable climate, these extreme climates, these superstorms that we see. It's not that an asteroid hit the planet. We don't have to send, a space mission up to Venus to turn down the thermostat. It's coming out of our tailpipes and smokestacks. We know what is caused. People have caused it. And in fact, if you took all of the physical reasons why the planet's climate has changed in the last 30 years, then we should have cooled, not warmed. And yet we've had runaway warming. And that is because of people. What we're doing, not only to the atmosphere, the CO2s and the nitrous oxides and the methane that we're adding to the atmosphere, but it's also land use changes. I mean, why is Toronto getting these flooding rains every time it rains? It's because it is the largest piece of hardened surface in all of Canada. I mean, it used to be 25% of the city was green, parkland, and look at boulevards and that. And now they have parking pads on front lawns. Turn that into an asphalt. And so when raindrop falls on a hardened surface, it's like we call it the Walmart effect. You know, when rain falls on a grassy knoll, it takes 8 hours to get down to the water table. When it falls on a Walmart parking lot, it takes 8 minutes to get down to the sewer line and flood your sewers. The infrastructure is aging. You can't transform Toronto. The reality is they're stuck with what they have. And cities like Barrie are going to be too, unless we engage in having more green space, more soft surfaces, and green roofs, things like that, to kind of help to slow the change. We can't reverse it. This is for me, it provides sort of, I mean, I won't be around to see it, but what we're not talking about is if we did everything that we could, if we stopped driving, didn't take any more planes, and everybody ate tofu from now on. Ooh, the sacrifice, yet it wouldn't make it better, but it would make it less worse than it would be. So it's all a matter of trying to slow it down so we can find some technological breakthroughs, some science, engineering, and solutions to it, which could come. But it is, I used to be a pessimist about climate change, but I've become more hopeful because of what we have seen, because people believe the science, more Canadians believe that climate change is occurring. Youth are very much engaged in that, and they just say, stand aside, we're coming through. And so, you know, I know there's still senior folk that maybe doubt it, and they've seen too much weather like myself, but I think the science is not lying to us. What we know now, we knew 30 years ago.
Yet there are still people who say, well, this is a cyclical thing. We've been through this before. We're going to go through this again, and the earth will look after itself. Are governments listening? Are more and more people hearing? I'm getting a sense from you that they are.
Yeah, I think generally the population is. I don't think necessarily politicians are. I think it's easy to forecast the weather, forecast the climate. It's tough for the solution because politicians have to weigh so many different factors in looking at, well, you know, I have to think about employment, I have to think about cost of living and things like this. I just can't go green totally. And I understand that. But I think we have to move at least in some measures to that way. And those people who have, I remember back in the 1990s, people used to say, "Oh my gosh, if the green came, it would destroy life. Nobody would have jobs." Well, what the green revolution has done, and I don't mean food, I mean in terms of energy and that, is they've created more jobs and good paying jobs and jobs that have great futures. It's not been the job killer that people thought. And so my sense is that we can't expect people to just accept it right away. I think that the new generation is more accepting of it. They feel that it's sort of like, you know, it's like blue boxes and things like this. Whoever thought that would take place, you know, that it would just be, oh my gosh, trying something else, you know, and now you'd be like, it's like you got a social disease if you don't practice a blue box stuff, like, you know, and you look at your neighbors who don't do that and you think, oh my gosh, they're not civic minded at all. But so I think it will become more natural for people to accept the things that have to be done to make sure that the environment is protected and becomes healthier. So it's a slow motion. It's not going to be done overnight. It's going to have to take a lot of luck, a lot of good science and technology and engineering to make this happen. But I think we have to make some effort. And I'm pleased that in cities have made an effort. I mean, and I always think that the solution is not global. It's not nationally. It's local. And when you can do those things locally to make your environment better, it's better for everybody. It makes your property values go up. It makes your community more desirable. People want to live in your community if they know that you understand climate change and that you are trying to do your best to make your community weatherproof from all of those terrible weather extremes that are coming our way. So my sense is that it's a win-win situation for people. It's just that, we have to convince more, and especially those people who are in a position to do something about it. And you look at even corporate industry in Canada. I wouldn't say the fossil fuel industry, no. But you look at CEOs and in boardrooms, what they're talking about is the greatest threat for the bottom line is runaway climate change. And we know even at Davos, the World Economic Conference, that the greatest impediment to world prosperity economically is climate change and extremes. Look at this year in Canada. We had this summer, the insurance industry cost them $7 billion from flooding, from fires, from hailstorms in Calgary. $7 billion. That was just a summer. It used to be awful if it was $2 billion for the whole year. And so it's clearly more expensive. And Dan, insurance costs account for only a third of the losses. People don't necessarily make a claim. They don't have insurance. So when you see those incredible numbers for insurance losses, it's a fraction of what the true costs are.
Global warming. Every winter it gets really cold for a couple of days and people say, oh yeah, there's your global warming. Or we get a couple of cool days in the summer, oh yeah, where's your global warming now? Then at the end of the summer we get that report about how much hotter it was this year than last, but it was only a point whatever of a degree warmer, and the hottest it got on average was around 67 Fahrenheit. So people say, what global warming?
Yes.
Explain this, please.
Well, it's hard to explain Canadians because we live in the second coldest country in the world, the snowiest. 39% of our precipitation is snow. The world average is 3%. More than 3/4 of the people in the world have never made a snowball. And so, winter is who we are and what we know. The thing is that shocks people, and you've hinted at it, is that, if you look at the last 100 years, the world is warmed up by 1.25 degrees. And you think, I can't even feel that when I go outside. And it's true. But it represents every square centimeter of planet Earth. When we've had warmer periods in the past, when we could grow grapes in Labrador, when you had agricultural communities flourishing in Iceland and grapes in England, well, that was only that area. But now there's not a place on Earth that hasn't felt the warmth and the extremes from this runaway kind of warming that we have seen. So, yes, it's been warmer in the past, but the speed of warmth, the speed of change has been absolutely shocking. Where it took centuries to warm it up that much, it's now warming up within a person's lifetime that much. And the models suggest, we've had 1 degree warming in the last 100 years. Look at all the misery in Canada that we've had over the last, sorry for going on about this, but I think that I used to always see climate change occurring in the Arctic. But 3 years ago, Canadians in the South saw it in their backyards, in their front yards, in their forests, and that we just began to see the deaths. We'd have a royal commission set up of 3 people died from a heat wave. In 2021, 600 British Columbians died from heat. 80 Albertans. It was just runaway heat we'd never seen before. Warmest temperature ever in Canada was almost 50 degrees. Warmer than any place in the United States outside of the desert Southwest. Warmer than Las Vegas and Los Angeles, any place in Europe ever, and in South America. And yet here we are, the second coldest country. We can brag about the fact that we have one of the warmest temperatures we've ever seen. So it's the speed of change. It's the range of temperatures that we've seen. That's the thing about it. If it was just going to be a warmer future, you'd say, okay, well, we won't have to worry about frost. No, it will be frost I mean, we're still going to be the Great White North, you say. So it's going to be a challenge to be able to handle all the heat that we're going to get, plus the fact that the low end may be not quite as cold, but it'll still be cold, and we'll see temperature. In last winter, we had the warmest winter on record, and yet you had temperatures for a week in Edmonton that were minus 45, and I'm not talking wind chill, I'm talking the absolute honest temperature, the air temperature. So you talk to them about global warming, and they're going to laugh at you and think, get out of here. So it is sometimes it's a shock, and how it shows up, how it's manifested in the kind of weather we see. And you see, the point is, Dan, it's the weather that matters. When you look out the window, you see weather. And that weather has been affected by the climate, by the general background warming that we have seen. And that's what's concerning. Yes, they are different. We started our talk by talking about how different weather was from climate, from global warming. And yet, they are linked because it's part of the same discipline. And so I often say, if you change the climate, you change the weather, and vice versa.
Barrie, downtown. The city would like to draw more people there, but not all residents have it on their destination list, citing crime, drugs, other detriments. Others don't have an issue with the core. A Barrie Police pilot project sought to identify the issues, find out what might draw more people downtown, and what role its officers can play. Here again is our Ian MacLennan with Mayor Alex Nuttall.
A Police Services Board meeting mid-October talked about the pilot project that was launched downtown. Just maybe if you could refresh everybody what that pilot project was about.
Yeah, so the Barrie Police Service was bringing down more folks into our downtown, our city center, to make sure that there was more visibility, that Dunlop Street and right to the waterfront, up to Collier, there was an appropriate amount of support there in case things are happening, really trying to restore that feeling of safety, security in our downtown. And we had a lot of really positive feedback. It's funny, I told a story at that meeting. My wife was at a bakery and coffee shop downtown, and one of the police officers just walked up and said, hello, ma'am, and how are you today? Hope you're having a great day. And then came into the bakery and chatted with everybody. And it was just a really positive vibe having that type of presence in downtown. When we've seen some of the issues that we've seen over the last number of years, where there's a lot of stories where folks are saying, I don't feel as safe and secure as I once did. I think that is helping to go a long way. And
that visibility was critical, the police said, whether it was on foot patrol, actually getting out of that cruiser in the so-called all-terrain vehicles, on the bicycles, and just seeing officers in the core.
Yeah, and I think it really, those conversations that are had, whether it's with business owners or maybe it's with individuals who are coming to spend a few bucks downtown, or maybe people who are just going for a walk. I think those interactions help the police understand who's downtown and what helps and supports are needed, and at the same time, it provides that, as you said, that visibility for folks who are down there to go, oh, there's one of Barrie's finest down there, and working hard and supporting the community. So it's a very positive thing.
And I felt in the report too, or the presentation, that police talked about the trust factor that has been built between some of our vulnerable population and police too, that you almost get to know everybody. Absolutely. And we should never forget that that feeling of safety and security needs to be there for everybody. And some of those folks that are dealing with some crises in their lives right now, being able to build those relationships with law enforcement, with police officials, we hope it eventually leads to referrals into good places, into housing and those types of things, and certainly cooperation between the police department with those relationships they're building and our local social services. Now, I found in the presentation, the report, that people that don't go downtown, which I guess maybe makes sense, are more concerned about the fear factor downtown than those who do utilize the restaurants and the stores and what have you. So I think the police are trying to hope that people that don't go down would actually get downtown, so to speak. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Because it's a perception. There is a major piece of perception, but I don't think that we should write off that there has been
a change over the past 6 or 7 years in terms of the amount of either social disorder or crime that's happening. And I think that it's not just downtown. I think that it's right across North America and every downtown, but also in non-city centers. And I think that we need to recognize that that's happening. However, the perception is needing to be worked on as we move forward, because there's some great shops downtown. There's some great restaurants. We all have our favorite restaurants downtown. We've got a wonderful waterfront. And I think what the police have done with this pilot project is try to say, look, come with us. We're going to be there and go and enjoy your downtown. You'll find it feels safe, it feels good. That doesn't mean there won't be an incident. There have been incidents in every downtown everywhere. I mean, you look at Kingston. Sometimes people say to me, "Oh, why can't we be more like Kingston?" Well, Kingston had a double homicide a few weeks ago in their city center.
Yeah, and the fact, I mean, and we've had those incidents too, but the fact that they make headlines because they don't happen very often, thankfully. But I think it was Chief Rich Johnson said too that the so-called serious crime, if you like, I'm paraphrasing, when they go downtown, that's not really the what they're responding to. The way he emphasized, he didn't want to take away that you've been a victim of a small crime, for lack of a better word, that it wasn't, obviously there's a victim involved, but they don't respond to heavy-duty serious crime all the time down there.
No, and I think the interesting thing is that until last year, the two highest places were actually one in the northeast and one in the southeast part of the city of Barrie. And we saw last summer for a couple of months, and then I believe that we'll find out, the data shows that this summer for a couple of months, downtown has been a hot spot. What I believe has happened is the policing downtown was actually essentially withdrawn. We didn't have officers dedicated to downtown for the last 5 or 6 years before I was elected mayor. And I think that results in less things being seen and less things being reported and less things being taken care of. Once we moved some folks dedicated to downtown through this pilot project, you start to see where the issues are and where they aren't, right? Because there's lots of things that are believed to be there that aren't there, but then there are some things that are there. So it'll be interesting to see what the data comes out at. But the most important thing here is that people feel safe. People go to our local shops and stores, and they support downtown. If you think about the air show, we were just talking about that before we came on. You think about the things that happened downtown this summer with the classic cars and all of the festivals and how vibrant and amazing and alive our downtown was. That's the atmosphere that we need to emulate and grow going into future years. And I think we'll make some real headway between that and the law and order, and also ensuring those who are vulnerable have the proper supports to be able to choose a better path.
I mean, you got a huge condo project going up, getting people living downtown. You've got a new grocer that just opened up, I think, Thursday.
Yep.
You've got a new pharmacy downtown. I mean, so people are beginning to gather. It's revitalization, I guess.
Well, yeah. And on Friday night, we had the Chamber Awards for the city of Barrie, and the mayor's Economic Development Award I awarded to Jamie Massey and Mike Stollery and Dino Melchior. And these three individuals invested in the building across from City Hall where the old IGA used to be. And we finally see it going in the right direction. I mean, like right now, the office space market, it sucks, right? Doesn't matter where you are. You go downtown Toronto, it's terrible, right? Yet this building's almost full up now since this ownership groups come into place. Now we have 900 students that are going to be in downtown Barrie at that building. We have a grocery store that people have been begging for. This is something that I actually committed to bringing in my election. And the Kennedy family going and investing in a grocery store downtown is incredible. There was requests for a pharmacy on the east side of downtown. That's now there. We have some incredible announcements coming up for downtown in the next 6 weeks. And you just sit there and you go like, okay, all the pieces, the puzzle pieces are all coming together that will attract people into our city center, attract people downtown. And also at the same time, we have our police department now very active down there on the safety security file. We have the County of Simcoe with everything they're doing on the social services, trying to make things more efficient and better. There's the next decade, I believe, is ours when it comes to downtown Barrie and seeing it move into a very positive light.
You can't force people to go downtown, but do you get frustrated sometimes with some of the comments you might see where people write, well, Barrie's going to hell in a handbasket, the downtown's this. I mean, you want a vibrant city, but
I don't get frustrated. People have their feelings and they have their views, and I think that our job is to make sure that there's less of those feelings and more of the feelings of safe, secure, great place to invest, great place to go. And that's what we're working towards. And, if somebody doesn't, I'd rather know that somebody doesn't feel good about something and then try to find a way to fix it than not know and somebody just think they're being polite.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian for his input, to Matt Ladder for his technical expertise, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on X at Barrie360, on our website, Barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcast available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.